Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. Today, Nutmeg and I here are going to be working on a less glamorous part of the garden right behind me, but that is because we are going to be finally starting some spring seeds and maybe some other winter seeds because we still have a couple months left of cooler weather. But I had a question on one of my videos asking about what sort of I do for my seed starting mix, because I do have a mix that I make myself. So we're gonna go over that today and just start some seeds together. And this might not be like the prettiest video back here, but hopefully it'll be a helpful one for you. So let's get to it. Welcome to my seed starting area. This might not look like much, but this is where all of the magic happens, I guess. Nutmeg absolutely loves hanging out up here and helping me along. But the first thing I'm going to do is make my seed starting mix, and I like to put it all just in some sort of container. This has holes at the bottom, so I just got an extra little saucer to put it all in. The first component that I use, pretty obvious, it's just soil. So this is an organic garden soil. Sometimes I get a raised bed one. Honestly, it really doesn't matter too much just because we're adding a lot of amendments to this. So I just pour it in. I can get it out here. I like to do maybe like 2/3 or 3/4 of it with soil. And I'll just use a shovel for some of it if need be. Probably like 2/3, I would say. I don't do exact measurements of anything, but it's just what feels right. The higher quality soil you can get, the better. I obviously don't get the cheap stuff, but I did find this at Lowe's and it works pretty well for me. The next thing I like to add is some perlite, so I have some behind me. I buy my perlite in bulk just so that it is more economic for me, and I typically do a couple scoops of that. This is going to add some nice aeration to the mix. Usually seeds need a good amount of moisture in order to germinate, but then once they get started, you really need to have some airflow so that they can dry out. Otherwise, you're going to have them kind of dry off and rot in a lot of cases. So I like to add some perlite just to help it along with that process. Next, I'm going to add some bone meal here. Just got this at local Lowe's, Home Depot. They usually have some stuff like that. I find a little bit of this goes a long way. So if I can get open here, this is a brand new bag. Just go ahead and get some of this out. Probably a little bit more than I would have liked, but it comes out fast. So it'll go ahead and change the color of your soil very quickly. And another thing to mention is do this outside, because things like perlite, the bone meal gets up in your face. The perlite can be toxic if it's inhaled in an enclosed environment. So I just like to make sure I get that done outside. The next thing is earthworm castings or worm poop. I feel like you can never have too much of this in your soil, so you really can't go wrong here. I'm just gonna go ahead and pour whatever feels right. Good amount of that in there. And then lastly is gonna be fertilizer. I will say with the fertilizer, when they are just starting out as seeds, I like to use the Espoma Biotone fertilizer. All of the fertilizers that I do use out here, other than like the worm castings and the bone meal, they do come from Espoma. I really like this brand. It's all organic. I think these fertilizers are super high quality, so I like to use them. This is really good for your seeds that you're starting. It's really good for young plants that you are just transplanting out into the garden. And then once they're through and they're mature enough, I'll go ahead and use the garden tone or the tomato tone if the tomatoes are big enough for that. Basically any of the other plant specific ones will be after they're strong enough. This is just really helpful for when they're just young little baby plants and they're just starting out with life. So I like to pour a healthy amount in there as well. And then it looks like I still have some extra room. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put in some more fertilizer. Not fertilizer, oh my gosh. I'm gonna put in some more soil. Just to kind of top it off. I don't want it overflowing so that when I mix it, it doesn't mix in well, but just want to make sure I get enough. And then I just redo this process every time I run out or I'm running low. And it usually lasts me a little while, but I feel like I'm constantly starting seeds. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mix this up here until it is thoroughly combined. You might see it's starting to lighten up in color just because of the bone meal and the perlite, and that's totally okay. That means you know that you've mixed it up pretty well. And that's pretty much all I do. I will say while my seeds grow, after they've germinated, I will add more fertilizer every few weeks or so, as Nutmeg has decided to make my seedling table into a scratchy post. That's totally fine. Just what he does. It's part of being a cat. But I will re-up on the fertilizer. Sometimes when I am growing my seedlings, I will sort of up pot them into bigger pots, especially the tomatoes. I really want to make sure tomatoes have a strong root system before I put them into the ground, and it'll just help them later on in life. So every time I up pot them, I will add sort of more of the seed starting mix, so I'll make it more heavy on the soil component and less of these other things, just because they don't really need a special mix at that point. And then I will re-up on the fertilizer. If they are getting bigger, I might start adding the tomato tone, things like that, just because I kind of grow the tomatoes into, I get them up to like 6-inch pots before I put them in the ground a lot of the time, so they really don't need the biotone at that point anymore. But this looks pretty well mixed, so I'll go ahead and show you guys what it looks like here. So that is a much lighter tone than just plain soil. You can see how dark that is in comparison. Just go ahead and throw that on top. And that's pretty much all I do for the mix. I think it works pretty well. I feel like it gives the little plants a head start in life. I've had a lot of success with it so far. It also helps that I'm picking out good quality seeds. I'm saving a lot of my own seeds from sort of the best of the plants that I've grown each season. And I've really narrowed down some seed companies that I really know and love at this point. So it all just kind of helps out in the process. I will say next, I like to sort of collect lots of containers back here. I feel like a little hoarder. So there are a lot of factors that go into the size container that I choose, and one of them is going to be based on the seeds themselves. So you have some types of seeds that when they sprout, they're really small. Take tomatoes, for example. When they first come up out of the ground, they're super tiny. And so I'm gonna start them typically in some of my smallest containers here. I collect everything from like a 1.5-inch container, which I have here, super tiny, all the way to 4-inch. I've got 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, huge containers back there. So tomatoes, I'm gonna start in the smallest containers that I possibly can. I'll usually typically start them in these. If I run out, then I might start them in these 3-inch containers. Things that are bigger when they sprout tend to be peas. They're kind of medium sized when they sprout, but they grow super quickly. Other things will be squash. So your watermelons, your zucchini, butternuts, any sort of squash, cucumbers, they all come out really big right off the bat. So I like to just go ahead and start them in a 4-inch container. The other thing that I like to keep in mind is how many seeds I'm going to start in each container. I typically don't like to thin things out because I always try to save every single little plant that comes up to a fault. Like I will save a vegetable plant seedling that just looks awful until it's like dead. So what I typically end up doing is separating once the little seedlings are big enough. I've done that with quite a few things and it mostly works out. If it doesn't, I really don't stress over it, but that's just what I like to do. You can also thin, but I would read the packet. Typically, depends on the type of seed I'm starting, I'll start 2 to 3 of each kind in a container. That way, I am more likely to have a successful germination and I won't have to go through yet another round of seed starting, because if you have things that are difficult to start, you might be trying for a month or so just to get something to start. And some of these things also have different times to germination. My celery takes about 3 weeks to germinate. My King Richard leeks take about 2 weeks, whereas my tomatoes can start in a matter of days. My bok choy starts in about 2 to 3 days. So it's all sort of dependent on the plant, which is totally fine, but you have to keep that in mind. So I like to sort of ensure that I have some success by starting 2 to 3 of each kind. Planting something small, it's still totally okay to start it in here. If I'm planting something bigger, I might only be able to fit 2 squash seeds in here, and by the time they're a week or 2 old, they're gonna already start to kind of cramp each other out of this. So in some cases, I might even want to start them in a 6-inch pot. It's totally based on your preference, how soon you want to up pot them, how soon you're planning on getting them out into your garden, and sort of if you're willing to separate them or if you just want to thin them out. So that's just another thing to keep in mind when you're starting your seeds. Before I get to the next step of actually planting something, yes, hello Astra. Guess she wants to say hi today. First of all, hello Astra. I wanted to show you seeds that I started a little while back, some of my winter seeds, and sort of what I mean in terms of up potting them into different pots. So these are both bok choy that I started from seed. I like to start in these small containers. So this one has been growing really steadily, really nicely. And then I have up potted this one twice. So I up potted from this to a little 3-inch pot. And then finally this 4-inch pot has this big beautiful bok choy that's just about ready to head out into the garden. I like to sort of make sure I can see roots on the bottom before I up pot. So this one does have, let me put this down so I can show you. This one does have some right in here. It's kind of hard to tell. So this one would be a good candidate to go out in the garden at this point, but it's always good to do a tug test to make sure. Sometimes they take a while. And then when you're taking it out, sort of make sure that it's firm in the pot and it's ready to go. But that's what I like to do in sort of setting these seedlings up for success so that they're nice and big and beautiful by the time that they head out there. Now we're ready to go ahead and start some seeds. So I have some of these little containers that I have already filled up with my mix. They had seeds in them that just never germinated, so I'm just gonna go ahead and reuse them. They're perfectly good to go. And I have some tomato seeds I'm gonna start. So this is the Pink Bumblebee Cherry Tomato. It was originally from Baker Creek Seeds. I grew it here myself and really liked it, so I went ahead and saved a few seeds. I'm gonna go ahead and plant 2 of these in here. They are kind of sticking to the bottom. Let's see if I can get them out of here maybe. Okay, I got a couple unstuck. So I'll just go ahead and I like to use the tags that I use just to label them and just put little holes in it. And then grab a few seeds out of here. And I got 2, perfect. And I'll just go ahead and drop them into each little hole. Make sure I cover them up. Stick the label on, and that's good to go. So that's basically how I do it. I am really bad about buying new labels, so I just wait for the sun to wear these out, and I just reuse them. I keep all of my seeds in this trusty old container. I've been keeping them in here since I was in college, I want to say. So these are all of my collection, my prized seeds. I will just talk a little bit about some of my favorite seeds in here. I mentioned that these were ones, the Pink Bumblebee, that I grew myself. So that's my favorite thing to do, is just save seeds myself of things that I already grow, and that way you don't have to pay for it. So anything in the brown little containers here, that's all stuff that I grew myself. I also really like botanical interests. So let me see if I can find Here's one that I'll be starting a little bit later on, probably directly in the ground. So these are the cornichons, basically gherkins, and I really like their company. I have a really good success rate with germination with their seeds. I like that they have a lot of variety that they offer. They offer a lot of organics, so that's just really nice. They have a lot of information on the back of their packaging as well, and a lot of info on the insides. They have beautiful illustrations. I believe they're all like hand drawn, and I really like them even before Epic Gardening bought them out, though I think it's really cool that they bought them and that they're keeping the company going. So that's a really nice one. Also, my favorite, of course, is going to be Baker Creek seeds. I have such a good germination rate with these. Honestly, these soybeans that I grew last year, I basically grew the whole packet. There's like 2 left in here. Every single seed germinated except one out of an entire packet. And I want to say there was like 30 to 50 seeds in here. So I don't know why people give them a hard time, because I honestly love them. They're my absolute favorite. They have an insane amount of variety from all over the world, and they're really good about telling you things that are heat tolerant, where things are native. So I really enjoy them personally. I also have some, I'm gonna have to unfold this to show you the packaging. I have some seeds from Renee's Garden. I really like them as well. They've got some high quality seeds. I have some good germination rates on these. I've mostly found these back in Pennsylvania when I lived there. I've yet to find them here, so I don't know if local nurseries here carry them at all, but I really like their seeds, and I'm sure you could just find them online, to be honest. And then finally, I do have some seeds from M.I. Gardener, though I'm kind of jury's out on them for me personally. I have not had the best success rate. I had some seeds that I grew last year that I had no success at all. The cumin actually, and then one of their yellow peppers, I had absolutely no success. And I had some that germinated and then they just died off. I had lots of rounds where they didn't germinate at all. So I'm really confused. Also, their cover crop mix, half of it was watermelons, which was extremely confusing. So I really don't know about that. I liked everything else in it, but I was like, I didn't need this many watermelons. And then finally, I did grow their black sesame, and that went really, really well. So I don't know, it's like, it's hit or miss with them. I really want to support them because I really like Luke's channel. So I might give them another go. I have been in the process of buying seeds for this year, so I'm not starting everything today, but I'll give them another go. I'll see how it is, but they're not my favorite. I really think my most reliable ones are Baker Creek seeds and Botanical Interests. I just personally really like them, so that's what I'm gonna go with for the foreseeable future. As always, you wanna make sure to give them a good drink after they have been potted up. I recommend using the mist setting on your hose if you have that, and if you're able to do that. It just makes sure that the seeds don't get jostled around with any sort of harsh watering. Once the plants are more established, like these here, you can go ahead and use a more regular setting on your hose, but misting it is just going to help make sure that everything stays in place where you wanted it, because some seeds have certain depths that they like to go to. But this is sort of just to show you all of the different levels of my seeds. I am constantly rotating seeds, constantly starting new things in the garden. So this is just the beginning for the spring garden. I still have lots of winter veggies to get out, some all season ones like this celery. Nasturtium's more of a colder season one, but things like that. Always got new things going. So we'll go ahead, fill this up, maybe even get a whole new tray of seeds out here. And then all of these back here, I started from seed as well. And I'm just waiting till it's warmer to get it out, but hopefully it's gonna warm up soon. So that is it for our seed starting video today. Nutmeg is feeling extremely acrobatic. If you liked it and you like what's going on right here, make sure to give Nutmeg and I a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. I hope you found this helpful. I am happy to do more videos like this in the future and go over the seeds I'm starting. Happy to go over the mix again. If you've got any questions, make sure to leave it in a comment down below. Thank you all again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.